Welcome to the Cosmic Cadence podcast. We are your hosts, Kate
and G. And this is the podcast where we decode the cosmic vibes of your favorite albums and the people that help bring them into the universe.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cosmic Cadence. And today we're talking about an album that is near and dear to both of our hearts. Our emo hearts, if you will. As you can see, we're wearing
very emo today. Yes.
The emo outfit.
Actually, I have an addition.
Oh.
And this is not a spoiler, but it goes along with what we're talking about today. If you are watching, you'll see it's a beanie and it says Future Ghost.
Yes.
That's a hint.
It's a huge hint. For those of you watching the podcast, you're gonna get the reveal first. For those of you listening, we're talking about Armor for Sleep's What to Do When You Are Dead. And this album was such a game changer for me. I don't know who I thought I was at whatever age I was when this came out. Like, this was like my holy grail, my Bible. And it was amazing that this book or this album came with its own little guidebook as to what to do when you are dead. So we'll get into this record. I'm so excited to be talking about it. I think it's turning 20 this year. Yeah, which is
so
insane.
2005.
Yeah. Which was I'm sure we'll talk about this in other episodes, but 2005 was like a heavy hitter year. So many albums that are just crazy with the anniversaries.
It was a good year.
It really was.
Very formative year, as you said.
Indeed. But we're not talking about those. Today, we are talking about Armor for Sleep.
The one and only.
The one and only. And I remember when this album came out, I was addicted from like the first song. And I didn't really know much about them until I did a little research and found out they were from New Jersey. And then I became addicted because I was living in the South and just like was clinging to any sense of home that I could find. So to have a band that was like from New Jersey, I was like, oh, I'm gonna rep this band super hard because I was from Jersey, and like they just became one of my favorite bands at the time and still to this day. Lots of fun memories around this record.
I remember that too being a selling point for me. I think they're from like Teaneck or something.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I would pass the Teaneck sign on the highway, I'd be like, oh, Armor for Sleep is from there. Yeah. So love the Jersey tie for sure. Lots of great bands from New Jersey. But I was gonna ask, do you remember how you got into, like, how you found them?
I vaguely want to say Fuse, seeing the video for Car Underwater, possibly, or MySpace. I can't remember which happened first, but I have so many memories of like listening and getting ready for school and like having the music videos on in the background and having that song pop up. Or scrolling along MySpace pages and people having like the song on their pages and I had it on my page. So either the internet or cable television was how I found them. How about you?
I also can't remember like specifically, but I feel like it was either, actually, I think it might have been in Alt Press. Like they were one of those little info sections with the album, and or maybe from an Equal Vision sampler, because I do remember seeing the music video. And as we've talked about, I didn't have these back in the day. So if I saw a music video, it was usually from like a sampler or something. But I just remember like Car Underwater. It's just such a good song.
It's such a good song.
I was addicted to that one. But you know what? I have a very, very strange random memory with this album. Okay. I don't know if any other schools did this. I don't even know why we did this back in the day, but I think I was a freshman and they had this like overnight sleepover for everyone in the gym. Which, like, why? I don't know.
But see, my high school did that, but it was what we had. I think it was like grad night or senior night. It was like the night of our graduation. We went and then all the seniors slept over at the school. But it wasn't like a freshman thing.
I'm like fairly positive. I mean, it feels like a fever dream, so who knows? But that happened. And obviously no one slept, like even though it was sleepover. So I was basically awake. It was the first time I think in my life that I was awake for like essentially 24 hours. And I was so overtired and just so like drained. And all I could do was go home and listen to this album on repeat. And it was the one thing that made me feel better. So
interesting.
Thank you to this album.
Oh, okay. I need a moment to unpack all of that because I was
Honestly,
wondering
me too.
where the album tied in,
Yeah,
but
it was basically my comfort album after staying awake for 24 hours, which is kind of funny because when you're dead, you don't sleep. So
in a weird way, like that experience you had of kind of going 24 hours without sleep was as close to you having maybe like an afterlife experience. And it
yeah,
was kind of like your, I don't know, your step into being able to relate to this
I was
album
a
even
future
more.
ghost.
You were in a future ghost state for sure.
Mhm.
Well, now that we've gone down that rabbit hole of memories, are there any songs on this record that were like your go-tos or your favorites?
Well, definitely Car Underwater. But yeah, when I was listening through, honestly, this album is like, I think highly underrated because it was just banger after banger when I was re-listening to it to talk about today. So it's actually hard. It's hard to pick a favorite because they were all so good.
And now that I'm thinking about it too, it's like I think what I loved about this record, and it was something that not a lot of bands, at least I guess a lot of bands I was listening to weren't doing at the time, were like the songs kind of flowed into each other in a sense, where it
Yes.
was almost like it's hard to break down my favorite songs because it's like one big song in a sense. So that was something I really enjoyed about this one too. I loved it was kind of like an interlude, I guess. A Quick Little Flight is the name of the song, but I used to play that one over and over again and use it almost like a lullaby.
I would say I really loved Basement Ghost singing.
Mm-hmm.
The chorus. I really like the chorus of
Mm-hmm.
Basement Ghost singing. But I guess like what I want to say in general is that this album, I just really love like the instrumentation on it. As I said, they're all bangers, honestly. And I feel like the other big one from this album was Truth About Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
That is also a really great song. You know what I appreciate is that isn't this album like it's kind of a concept album.
Yes, yes.
So I do appreciate that there's a full story there and it really takes you through like it if you kind of feel like you're going through all those phases because there's the, energetic songs and the slow songs and whatnot. So you get a really nice array of everything, I would say, on this album.
Yeah. I think kind of going into before we get into our guesses, I will say it's funny listening back to it now, knowing what we know about the zodiac signs. Like I don't think it's a Scorpio sun, just knowing when it came out. Such a
Uh-huh.
Scorpio album, and I think that is also why like I attached myself to it as a
Yes.
kid. Like
Yeah.
again, not even like fully understanding it back then, but like all the themes of like death and rebirth and restarting, trying all of that, all the cycles that unfortunately as Scorpios have to deal with. Um, it had such a heavy presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree. And that actually reminded me when I was listening through this one, I listened to it in my car. And when I was scrolling down to see where I was at in the album, I saw the release date and I was like, no, I ruined it for myself. But then I remembered that on Spotify, when a lot of these older albums were put up, they just put January 1st as
Mm-hmm.
the delivery date. So I was like, okay, never mind, I'm good.
Okay,
So
so it's funny you bring that up though, because I saw the same thing on Spotify and I was like, those poor people, they didn't get a Christmas holiday because they were trying to set up this record.
yeah,
But I
no, they were
didn't realize
trying.
that was a thing that Spotify does.
Yes, if it's an older album, it'll say released January 1st, but that is not true. And Google should have the actual release date. So for me, I honestly do not, for the life of me, remember when this came out. So my guesses are all uh purely intuitional.
Okay, let's get into those. What do you think the sun is?
Okay, I actually have notes right here in front of me because a lot of thoughts on this album. But what I will say is overall, I do believe the elements that I got were water. I feel like there has to be water on this album. Air, but I also wonder if I'm getting air because of the album cover.
Like the vision
The
of a
vision
ghost, yeah.
of the guy floating.
Mhm.
So I do kind of feel that. And then ground. Ground was just kind of a element that came to me like as a download. I don't know that I got a ton of ground on the album in general, but it's just something I feel is present. So I think what I boiled it down to here is that I want to say this album is a Cancer sun because it's very emotional, but in a weird way nurturing. Like you can really tell there's a love between this couple, of like the departed and his love on Earth. Then I want to say Scorpio rising, simply because of what you said as well. So much death imagery, of course, and Scorpio rules the death card and whatnot in the tarot. So there's that. And then for the moon, I want to say I got it down. Like I feel like somewhere there was Capricorn. Because this album's very dark.
So what's so funny is you and I, for the first time maybe ever outside of the sun, because I know what the sun is, I think we were kind of spot on with our guesses as far as like the energy and the signs, even to a certain point. So I too agree with the Scorpio rising. I just feel like it's presenting itself as a Scorpio, but it's not necessarily the sun sign, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
And then for the moon sign, I didn't get as much ground energy as you did, but I can see the like the areas where that makes sense. But I did get Capricorn energy for the moon and how they deal with like the emotions and all of that. And there's a certain darkness to Capricorn as well, to where like I almost was like, maybe it's a Capricorn rising, but I ended up going back to it being a Scorpio rising and a Capricorn moon. I won't say my guess for the sun because it'll give things away.
If I didn't say Capricorn for the moon, I would have said Aquarius. So I don't know if you had Aquarius anywhere in there, but
I didn't get a lot of air on this one, believe it or not. It was a lot of water for sure. Like honestly, if it weren't for me thinking about the Capricorn and Scorpio of it all, like it would have been an all water big three.
Yeah,
it's a heavy album. Okay, so
yeah, I'm gonna lock in those guesses. So for me, Cancer sun, Scorpio rising, Capricorn moon.
Okay,
that feels good.
I'm so excited right now. We'll start with the sun.
Yeah, please tell me what the release date is because I do not remember.
The release date was February 22nd, 2005.
So Pisces.
It indeed is a Pisces sun. And what I was going to say, but stop myself from saying it because Kate would have picked up on it immediately and been like, oh, I know, I get what you're putting down. There's a dreamlike quality to all of this.
Very much
as
so.
well, where it's like, it's a concept album. So the way I'm going to say this is going to sound crazy, but I think you'll follow along with me. He's like fantasizing about death, right? Like no one can experience death and then write about it because unfortunately, once you die, you are dead. So there is like this like fantasy that he is creating on this record, or that the band is creating on this record, telling a story. There's almost like listening to it through a dreamlike haze. That's another thing too, is like this album is so visual, where I remember the music videos, but even the songs that didn't have music videos, like I can listen and like see it so clearly in my head. And I don't know, that kind of also lends to Pisces, where they're the artists, they're painting a picture with their words and how they live their life and all of that. So confirmed, it is a Pisces sun. How do you feel about that? You were close. You were close with the water.
Okay, so I was going to save this to say when we pick our songs, but I'm going to say it now because it very much relates. So the last song of the album, The End of a Fraud, there's a line in there about realizing you weren't dead. And I actually got very heavy Pisces energy because I was like, if that's a metaphorical way of thinking, like it has that Pisces element of, was this all a dream?
Right.
Like it's almost that inception, if you will.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I feel really good about that one. Let's do the moon next, because we were both wrong.
Is it more water?
No.
Ground?
No.
So air?
No.
Wait, I forgot what else is there. Oh, fire.
Fire. Very, very unexpected, actually.
Okay. Yeah, this is gonna stump me. Aries?
Leo.
You know what? Okay. No. Oh my God. Wait, this makes sense. Okay, wait. Here's the thing. I said Cancer. Partly for the water element. Also, a reason I said Capricorn, Cancer, Leo makes sense now because loyalty. There is so much loyalty on this album. And Leos, that's what they're known for, is to be loyal.
I'm gonna agree with that because for the life of me, I can't give you anything to justify there being Leo in this record. So your answer is also my answer.
There is a way here because honestly, this album, like, there's a lot of like songs that rock really hard. You know,
definitely get the energy, but also when I think of this record, I think of the summertime. Like I remember listening to this in the summer of 2005, you know, and like hot, granted, I was living in the South, so I guess it was always technically hot, and maybe that's why I'm remembering it this way. But I just think of like warm weather, sun shining when I think of this record. So I'll say Leo time frame is how we can, for me, I'll describe the Leo moon.
That can be yours. I feel like for me, this is more of like a fall album, but yeah, at least we both have, there's Leo in there for us.
The rising, however.
Please tell me it's Scorpio.
I will tell you, it is indeed a Scorpio.
Got
it right.
Okay, this is why, everyone out there listening, this is why this is crazy, because like the fact that that's what it is insane to me. Because for people who say astrology isn't real,
it's real.
It's real. An example, okay? This is an example. The fact that because this album was put out on that day is insane.
Yeah. And it's so funny because you said something interesting to me the other day where it's like the statistics of it all, of like the chances of all of these different combinations that could exist.
There's over 1,000, okay?
But I think it's really cool that we guessed this because of our history with this record, you know? And it's like very validating to see that there was something kind of, you know, in the universe working.
There's a thread all
along that, you know, brought this record into my life, brought this record into your life.
Yeah.
And here we are sitting in 2025, 20 years later.
All in black.
Dressed all in black.
Very
repping emo, hardcore. To honor this record, you know, that affected both of our lives in that way. And
it's very emotional, which Scorpios, as we know, are very emotional. But you know what? I do want to ask on this one, I think I got to ask for both Mercury and Venus, because that plays a big part in this album, especially Venus, because it's about a relationship.
So Venus is Aquarius.
Okay, I did guess a little bit of Aquarius on there.
And the Mercury is just double downing on everything we've already know. It's Pisces. So the whole theme of, or not the theme, I guess, but kind of like what you were saying with the last song of maybe this was all a dream. Like the dream-like quality is how this album is communicating to us.
That is so cool. I'm sorry, but that's so freaking cool.
I think we need to take a moment just to like pat ourselves on the back, one, for getting the ascendant spot on.
But again, it just shows that like this all makes sense, because the fact that we even got one or two of them, or like the fact that it's in the same family, you know, this album had to have water energy, because hello, like car underwater. It starts with water. Like, yeah.
Wow. Now that the big three is revealed, let's dive a little deeper and put some songs to these signs.
Sun sign, that's actually easy for me because it's what I already said of the end of Fraud. And it makes sense that it's the last song on the album, though technically there is a bonus track, which I appreciate because we don't do that enough anymore. Bring back bonus tracks. But the fact that that closes the story and it could all be a dream, you know, like we don't know necessarily. And it's also obviously very emotional, especially like the reprise in it. So I will say the end of Fraud is my overall Pisces song.
Okay. For me, it was Awkward Last Words. I see the end of Fraud as well, but for sake of spicing up the playlist a little bit, I would say Awkward Last Words. I think it's, again, just another great example of like having that storyteller dreamlike quality in, I guess, the lyrics and the delivery of the song. Like it feels like you're listening to someone tell you a dream that they had almost.
For Leo, I think I'll say I Have Been Right All Along.
You took mine.
Good. Okay, so we're in agreement. And the reason for me personally is that I actually had this originally as Capricorn for the loyalty of it all, because there is lyrics, which we have our handy dandy CD booklet here. Love a CD booklet. But the lyrics are, Um, thought I was dreaming when my heart stopped beating, but I got this feeling that I was put here for you. And I feel like that's that loyalty of, you know, you're always going to be the person for me, even in death.
Mm-hmm. I think what I got from that, similar to you, but also on just the surface level, the song title alone, you know, like
Oh
that
yeah,
confident
that's so true.
declaration, like I was right all along, you know, that is so Leo. And for listening to this record without even thinking about fire energy at all, when now knowing what we know, like that definitely is the only song I can think of that is giving me that kind of Leo fire energy.
Fair. Scorpio for me, Scorpio rising is actually pretty easy for me.
Do we
Will
say it at the
say,
same time?
yes, I want to say that literally I was going through my notes and I swear to you, half of this album, I don't know how many songs, there's like what, like
I think
13,
11,
yeah.
12.
Somewhere between 10 and 13 songs. Literally more than half of them I put down Scorpio. So yeah, but okay. On three. One, two, three.
Car Underwater.
Yes, of course. It had to be.
It had to be.
Which is kind of funny that like that starts the album and then My Pisces Guest, of course, closes the album. But with the water, I mean, it starts with death, like that's literally the start of the story.
Yeah. But then even too, if you think about, and I just got goosebumps like getting this download, what it means when someone's talking about their big three, right? Like your rising sign is someone's first impression of you.
True.
This is the first song on the record. This is our first impression. I believe this was the first single of this campaign too. So it's like, this is who I want you, not even who I want you to be. Like, this is the perception you are getting of me. You think I'm a Scorpio. But then by the time you get to the end of it, you're getting the sun sign. You're getting the person at its true core. You're getting this record who it really is, and it's a Pisces. And I think the fact that the beginning song is the Scorpio and the closer song you guessed as Pisces, there's something really poetic about all of that.
There really is. And plus there's the line in Car Underwater, what hurts more is I would still die for you.
Yeah.
Very, very Scorpio. But you know, it's funny, and we'll show this again if you're watching the album cover. Like this, I can see both because I think we already talked about like it's very dreamy, but it's also very dark, you know, so it kind of does give both of those elements.
Yeah. I think we did it. Any closing words, closing statements?
I will say I feel very lucky that I've gotten to see this album played live at least twice. I do remember specifically, I think the first time I saw it live, front to back, was in the Marlin Room when it existed at Webster Hall.
Wow. Was that on the 10-year maybe?
It was either 10 or 15. I very much appreciate that Armor for Sleep very dutifully tours these anniversaries, which they're actually touring this year for the 20th. So if you haven't seen them live yet, especially this album, if it's one of your favorites, I think you should go check them out because it was really special. Like we were talking about, this album definitely held a very special place in my heart since I was a wee lad, a wee child. But it really was one of those formative albums for me. And like we already talked about, love that there was some Jersey pride and made me, you know, grateful to be from New Jersey. Even just actually, now that I think about it, not that I saw this album front to back, but I'm pretty sure I saw Armor for Sleep like open a School of Rock show. I don't know if that still exists, but
it does.
In Hackensack, yeah. Great venue. So it's just nice thinking back to have seen them from like those early stages, opening shows to now they're obviously headlining their own shows and touring this album still 20 years later. So
yeah,
it's very nice.
I think with that, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Cosmic Cadence. And if you can, like Kate said, get those tickets. Check out Armor for Sleep.
Thanks so much for listening to the Cosmic Cadence podcast. If you like what you heard, please take the time to subscribe and like, rate, and review wherever you listen. It really helps us out.
You can also find us on socials at Cosmic Cadence Pod on all platforms. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you next time.